Hi there, welcome to the How To Academy Science YouTube channel. My name is Luke, I'm head of video here at How To Academy, and today we're very lucky to speak to Chris Damman and Marc Washington, two experts in healthy living, nutrition and wellness. Marc is the founder and CEO of Supergut, and before that he was a titan in the health business world, serving as CEO of Irwin Naturals, COO and president of Beachbody, the creators of P90X, and director of strategy and operations at Fiji Water, among others. Chris, meanwhile, is a practicing gastroenterologist, clinical associate professor at the University of Washington, and is an expert on food and microbiomes. Because of this, he is the chief medical and scientific officer of Supergut. Today, Chris and Marc will be coming up with a top 10 list of diet and nutrition tips. So, firstly, guys, we're often told that we should eat less and cut stuff out of our diets, but what should people be getting more of in their diet in general?
I'll kick this one off. The number one thing that we are missing in our diets is none of us are getting enough fiber. When you think about gut health, everybody's talking about the importance of gut health. Well, guess what? Fiber is the food source for your gut, right? And so you want to have a healthy gut to have healthy overall health and avoid diseases and stay on top of your health. You need to be feeding your gut at least 30 grams of fiber every day. And the issue is almost none of us do. Literally 95% of us do not get that minimum bar of fiber in our diets every day. So that's the top thing that we can recommend that you need to be getting more of in your diet.
Yeah, I'm there with you, Mark. I think fiber is absolutely critical. It's one of the key things that's been taken out of our food system through processing, actually. And also, changes in food preferences around eating less whole foods. In terms of other things that I think are really important, I fall back on the 4 phonetic Fs, and that's fiber, phenols, ferments, and good fats. And phenols are probably one of the next most important things. Phenols are those compounds in plants that give them their color. So when people say eat the rainbow, that's actually what they're referring to. And polyphenols or phytochemicals, there's many different names for these chemicals that are present in plants, healthy chemicals, natural chemicals, is they play a profound role in actually regulating our mitochondria, which are the key energy powerhouses in our cells. It's actually, there's a lot of good science that connect the polyphenols to mitochondrial regulation, which is really fundamental to metabolism.
And those phenols also tap into this gut microbiome health as well. So just another reinforcement of the importance of gut health, and polyphenols also impacting gut health.
So absolutely, Mark. And it turns out the microbiome actually makes the polyphenols in plants more bioavailable. So it turns out that they tend not to like to cross over the gut barrier. And the microbiome modifies them to make them a little bit more prone to be absorbed and actually be able to impact the body beyond the gut.
Fantastic. So you said there that you eat the rainbow, obviously a lot of colors in the rainbow. How important is variety in your food? Does it matter how you eat that variety in your day?
Well, they say variety is the spice of life, but you could probably turn that around and say, well, actually, you should have variety in your spices or your plants. Spices being one of those plants. And yeah, it's really important. So you are what you eat, your microbiome is what it eats, and its diversity is a direct reflection of the diversity of foods that you're eating. Diversity in an adult microbiome has been linked to better health. So it stands to reason that eating a diverse diet will also promote a diverse microbiome and diverse overall health as well. This is borne out in lots of epidemiological studies too, that eating diversity in foods is incredibly important. It makes sense because diverse foods provide lots of different types of micronutrients and kind of fill in and complement each other. So in terms of diversity, one of the things that you're capturing in eating diverse foods is actually micronutrients, and those are like vitamins and minerals, but also macronutrients, and that's carbs, fibers, and fats. And not all carbs, fibers, and fats are created equal. There are some healthier types of carbs, healthier types of fats, healthier types, perhaps even of proteins. And what determines health and lack of health probably has to do with, well, which one are we consuming too much of and which one we're not consuming enough of? Because overall, you can't really say that a nutrient is unhealthy. It's just a matter of how much or how little we're getting of them. And some of the key macronutrients that we are not getting enough of, or subtypes thereof, would be fiber. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate. And in terms of fats, we probably eat too much saturated fat, not enough of the unsaturated fats, the polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, which are the fats that come from fresh fruits and vegetables, in particular, things like avocados and olives. And this is where olive oil and avocado oil comes from. And then lastly, in terms of proteins, different types of proteins have different amino acid composition. And the amino acid composition in animal-based foods, is more or less the exact composition that we need in our cells, given that we're animals. The amino acids present in plants there's some amino acids that are a little bit less. It's not that they don't have these amino acids, they're just less. So it can be a little bit more of a balancing act. It's not impossible, it's certainly doable to get the full complement of amino acids on a diet that is predominantly vegetable-based.
Awesome. So, speaking of those macronutrients, simple question: are all carbs or all carbohydrates built equally? White bread and brown bread, white rice and brown rice. Does that matter?
Yeah, this matters a lot. I'll chime in on this one. The one thing that people don't realize, like in general, digestible carbs, are less good for your health. But people don't realize fiber is actually a type of a carb, right? And so it's not all carbs are not created equal. And so simple things such as, white rice versus brown rice. So if you think of traditional white rice, it's been processed and polished and milled and essentially stripped of its fiber and its nutrients. And so a simple swap is, having brown rice, right, instead of white rice, and they're going to actually get more nutrients in and have less of a negative impact on your metabolic health, your glycemic control, blood sugar, etc. And same can go across a wide range of different types of simple carbs versus more complex carbs, more fibrous carbs that are actually good for you.
Love it, Mark. And, it's fiber. It's also good fats and phenols. So these are concentrated in the bran that's taken out of, processing of brown rice, and whole wheat flour is, another important one that is processed down to more of a sort of refined white flour. So yeah, if you have the luxury of being able to have whole wheat flour, brown rice, there can be health benefits to that.
So let's step out a second. Does it matter the order in which I eat my carbs, my protein, my fat? Can I just put it all in a blender and eat it straight up? Does that matter?
It's a really good question. There's been a lot of work recently around timing of eating in general, whether you eat in the morning or evening, whether you fast. But in terms of how you order your macronutrients, surely there's been work done on this. I haven't delved deep into this literature, but intuitively you can think in terms of sort of the wisdom traditions and the ways that we generally eat meals. And we don't start with refined sweets. We tend to start with, the more savory types foods. Certainly there's carbs in there, but they're ideally the complex carbs. And the refined sort of simple sugar carbs are the ones that we eat at the end. And maybe there's a rhyme or reason for this wisdom that's been handed down, through culture, and why we tell our kids, wait for your dessert. And it could be that all of those other nutrients that we're eating, including carbs and fiber in particular, but proteins and fats, slow the absorption of those simple carbohydrates, so you don't have a really high sugar spike and an insulin spike as well. So I think timing probably is important. There's probably been a lot of research on this, and your good question will probably lead to a fun evening's reading for me.
So it's healthier stuff first, less healthy stuff last. It's kind of the general direction. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk fermented foods, right? You go on the internet, they're all the rage. Are they all that they're cracked up to be?
So Luke, there's so little research that's been done on fermented foods to date. But the limited good research that has been done is intriguing to me. So there's a study that was published very recently out of Stanford by Justin Sonnenberg and his group that looked at dietary counseling around increasing in one arm fermented foods, and another arm fiber. And they found that the fermented foods increase diversity of the microbiome in the gut. And we're saying in adults that's probably a good thing. it's not actually the microbes that are in the fermented foods that are increasing. It's ones that are endogenous, they're already present in the gut, but the minority members in your lower gut, actually. So, lower small intestine and colon. The other thing that fermented foods seem to do in this study, at least, was decrease inflammation in the body. So that also is generally a good thing. So that's just one sort of shining example of a recent study that's been done on fermented foods. There's certainly others as well. And I think this is an area that's ripe for research, ripe for investigation. If you think about evolutionarily, what were we eating before refrigeration and before shelf stability? It was probably inadvertently a lot of fermented foods, and we've evolved lock and step with these microbes. They probably in many ways are contributing to our health because this is what we, have evolved to experience. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to learn in the fermented food space still.
So, the big fermented food that everyone talks about is kombucha. Yay or nay?
There's a lot of opinions out there.
I'd say a bit of both, right? And so, to Chris's point, there are some positive benefits of fermented foods, and kombucha being a type of a fermented beverage to add more live, cultures and broaden the diversity. So directionally, generally good. I'd say one of the things that we are cognizant of and cautious of is like, what else is in there and what else are you adding? And so one of the things to be careful of in general in your diet and in kombucha specifically is sugar, right? And a fair number of the kombuchas that you will see on the shelf do have a pretty fair amount of sugar in them, in addition to the live probiotic strains. And it's just one of those things that you want to be careful of in your diet, because yes, you want to diversify and feed the good bugs in your gut, and you want more of them there, but you also want to be careful about feeding the bad bugs. And guess what the bad bugs love to eat? They love sugar, right? And so it's a bit of a mixed story when it comes to kombucha. My general take is it's probably a lot better for you than a soda, right? Or a soft drink or something else that has no benefits within, it's just chocolate sugar. But, we think of it in moderation when it comes to something like a kombucha.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point. The added sugar can be tricky in terms of promoting health. But there are other ingredients in kombucha and fermented foods that are probably contributing to health, and vinegar is one of those. And people have heard a lot and talked a lot about apple cider vinegar. I don't think it necessarily has to be a specific type of vinegar. Vinegar itself, acetic acid, acetate, these are all the same name for the same thing. It's actually been studied on a number of well-done research studies looking at its impact on sugar and slowing its absorption, and maybe being bioactive in other ways as well. So it could be that acetate is kind of one of the key star molecules that's present in fermented foods.
So putting the fermented foods aside as that area of hype, the other one is supplements, right? You can't walk into a shop without being thrown supplements and diet. What two things, let's strip away all of the complexity, what two things could someone watching this right now focus on to get healthier and to get a healthier gut?
Yeah, so supplements are interesting because I would say that all the nutrients that we consume are meant to be consumed in the context of other nutrients. And this is why whole foods are so critical. That said, I think there are probably some supplements that could be taken in the context of eating your food that fill in those gaps within the actual food that you're eating, not as a supplement that you take alone in the morning, but maybe along with your foods, in particular foods that are missing some of those key things. So actually fiber is one of them. Fiber is processed out, and I would say that's one that could be really valuable. Maybe polyphenols, although more research needs to be done on this. Not as much research has been done as has been done on fiber. Certain types of fats. So everyone talks about fish oil or krill oil or omega-3s, which are what are concentrated in these oils. And the research is a little bit mixed right now on omega-3s. One of the reasons is a lot of supplements go rancid quickly, and this is why getting your your fats in the context of a whole food can be helpful. Fats in particular are the ones that go rancid. This is why processing started in the first place. Why we have white rice. It increases the shelf stability, taking away the bran, which has a lot of fat in it and goes rancid quickly. So if you are doing omega-3s, it's important to be taking them from a reputable source that does a lot of quality control on them, and probably taking them in the context of a meal where you're not getting enough of those omega-3s. You can also maybe, just put some olive oil or avocado oil on. Certainly, fresh avocado and olive oil may be best stored in the refrigerator to prevent rancidity. And that can achieve maybe a similar result in getting good fats into your diet.
Chris, did you also want to talk about potassium? As that's another key nutrient that we've been talking a lot about that we need to be getting more of in our diet. And I think you've pointed out even myself specifically can get some more potassium.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. Nutrients at the end of the day are about balance, and there are some key nutrients that are particularly important in how they're balancing each other. And so far, we talked a lot about fiber and carbohydrates, and they certainly balance each other. But another really key balance that we're learning about is potassium and sodium. Now, you've probably heard from your doctor in public health messaging, eat less salt, eat less sodium, eat less sodium chloride. And that is true. And a lot of our foods are loaded with salt, things that you wouldn't even recognize as being loaded with salt, like bread. Bread has tons of salt in it. A lot of the foods that you have in the refrigerated section have tons of salt in them. Soups, canned soups, tons of salt. But the ill health effects of too much sodium can actually truly be mitigated by potassium in terms of their impact on your blood pressure. And there's very good reasons for this. The potassium helps you get rid of the salt through your kidneys, through your urine. And it also helps balance how much pressure there is in your blood vessels, those two different minerals. And if I were to pick, another deficient nutrient, really, really important one beyond fiber, it would actually be potassium. The USDA recognizes this, and I think they put out a publication every 5 years or so on nutrition in the nation. And this is these two nutrients are among the four that they highlight.
Okay, that's some good tips right there. Two more questions from me. Firstly, the gut, right? The key to everything. Everyone is talking about probiotics. Again, is the hype worthy? Are there other biotics that we need to be paying attention to?
Well, again, I'm going to be a little bit mixed here, right? And really, when we think about this, and as you can see with Chris, we take it back to the science and the evidence basis upon how things are actually beneficial. And when it comes to the science of probiotics, there are some legit kind of good, high credible science about some specific strains at certain quantities that can be very beneficial. But then for a lot of them, and in particular for a lot of the store-bought kind of shelf-stable probiotics, it's pretty mixed. A lot of them don't have a significant amount of evidence behind, are they actually doing something for your health? Just the one thing to just clarify, right? For many people, just knowing what these are is important, right? So probiotics, think of it as trying to add additional good bugs into your gut. You already have trillions of good bugs in your gut. The concept of probiotics is getting more of them, adding more good bugs to your gut. Where we tend to focus on, needs to be getting more focus and is increasing in attention is back on the prebiotic side of things. And so think of the prebiotic as the food, the nutrients for the good bugs in your gut. So that even if you are getting probiotics through diet, through whole food, through supplementation, you need to also, at a minimum, be thinking of prebiotics. Like, what is it that you are feeding your gut, both the bugs that are already in your gut or any additional bugs that you might be adding through probiotics, for them to actually do their job, to actually grow and proliferate, be strong. You absolutely need to get more prebiotics. And frankly, the research around specific prebiotics and the importance of them adding to your diet is pretty profound. And in terms of the positive benefits that can have, not just on your gut and your digestive health, but actually on your metabolism, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight management, etc. And so I actually place a lot more emphasis on the prebiotic side than on the probiotics. Chris, did you want to talk about another biotic that's also interesting and important for us?
Yeah, so I think well put, Mark. And in terms of, just to muddy the waters even more, you've got the prebiotics, which feed the probiotics, but there's also postbiotics. And postbiotics are what the probiotics are making from the prebiotics. It's a mouthful. But when I have folks come into my office and ask me about probiotics and prebiotics, I'll often tell them that fermented foods kind of have the full complement, especially live fermented foods. There's probiotics there's prebiotics, and there's postbiotics. So if you're looking to get probiotics into your diet, the fermented foods offer an option which really gives you the full complements, the whole community. Because a lot of the probiotics that are on the shelf are derived from foods. They're just individual or handful of bugs from foods. Not entirely, and some of those are from our gut too, like bifidose in particular. And that's the one other probiotic that I tend to gravitate towards. But to your point, Mark, which reigns supreme among the pre, pro, and post? I have a little mantra in my head: if you feed them, they will come. And it's probably true for most of us, certainly at a community level, that eating the right types of foods will promote a healthy gut microbiome. There's certainly people that have disease states where that microbiome is so impoverished, it's almost like a bleached coral reef, that no amount of feeding is going to make a difference, but they're not the majority of individuals. And for folks that have guts like that, there's next generation approaches to microbial therapy that provides the whole complement of healthy microbes that originate from the gut back to them. Some companies are working on that really important problem. But I always come back to, for most people, if you feed them, they will come. Eat the right types of foods, and you will grow a diverse and healthy microbiome to promote whole health.
Bleached coral reef sounds pretty grim. Last question and last tip. Very simple. Sugar, is it as bad as everyone says?
Absolutely. I will get on my podium and shout from the rafters. Absolutely. I think sugar is literally one of the main causes of the metabolic health syndrome and the chronic issue that we're dealing with, not just domestically, but globally. And I think sugar is one of the main, root causes of that. If you think of back to, not to make everything about the gut, but if you do go back to your gut and you think of, what are the things that you can that you consume that actually do cause dysregulation, that are actually feeding the bad bacteria in your gut. And sugar is at the top of that list, right? And so when you look at the root causes of many of the diseases that we deal with, chronic metabolic health diseases like diabetes and obesity, for instance, sugar is such a root cause and a key driver of these core diseases. I actually think of it, not to be facetious or overstate, but I actually think of sugar in many ways as a drug, right? As something that literally, when you consume it, like your body continues to want more and more of it over time. And I think of it as a drug because of when you think about the detrimental effects that it is actually having on your body, when you consume it and when your body craves more of it over time, it literally continues. And so I absolutely think that sugar is as bad, if not worse, than what we make it out to be. Not that you can't have in moderation, but I think the problem is we all, on average, have way more sugar in our diets than what we should. And so finding great substitutes for sugar, I think, is a really important part of an overall healthy diet.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Those tips should be super helpful for everyone watching. And speaking of everyone watching, keep your eyes peeled for our second video with Chris and Mark, where we come up with the top 10 lifestyle and wellness tips for a healthy day. Until then, we have loads of other videos on our channel, everything from processed foods to meditation, psychedelics to biological anthropology, so do go and check those out. Hope to see you again soon. Take care.